Okay, good evening, everyone. Um, Thank you all for joining me today for tonight's academic support workshop series, the APA Basics 7th edition. This PowerPoint also will be having adaptations from the Purdue Owl Writing Lab, their APA formatting and style guide on APA. So some of the slides will reflect Purdue Owl's Writing Lab. Um, if you're unsure what Purdue Owl, they're Purdue University, and they specialize in one of mostly a lot of universities refer and colleges refer to Purdue Owl. Um, if you ever need any assistance with any type of writing styles, there are different writing styles. But the one we're going to focus on tonight, which is APA Basics, which is the style that Monroe University uses college university wide. So we'll be double into some of these components of APA Basics for this evening. Again, my name is Shantae Hope. I'm the Director of Library Services here at Monroe University. You're more than welcome to contact me at chope@monroeu.edu. You can also email library@monroeu.edu as well. Okay, so let's delve into our um, presentation tonight. Okay, so this session will be recorded and placed on the Monroe University Library's tutorial webpage, and there is the link for you as well. This PowerPoint will also be provided to your professors as well. Also to the full PowerPoint of the Purdue Owl presentation for the APA formatting and style guide, link here as well, and it goes into much more detail than I'm going to be going into tonight. So please feel free to take a look at that as well. Since this presentation is very, very lengthy, there will be time during and after this presentation for questions. So please wait until that time to ask your questions. If you can, write it down or try to, just try to remember or hold on to it. Just because I would like to keep the presentations moving and I have a lot of time just for questions. Again, if you ever need any assistance, any academic support, or any additional support with APA, you're more than welcome to reach out to the library's virtual reference desk, which is basically to reach out to us if you can't reach out to any of the campus libraries, or you can make an appointment with any librarian that we have here on staff at Monroe University. Okay, so a presentation overview. We're going to discuss quickly what is APA. We're going to go over what the APA essay and research paper format looks like, what the general format is, the title page, and the abstract page. We're also going to go into what is in-text citations, which includes direct quotes, paraphrasing, and summaries. We're also going to talk about signal phrases. We're also going to discuss how to format those in-text citations, which includes 2 authors, 3 to 20 authors, unknown authors, group organizations. We're also going to delve into talk about level headings. Then we're also going to talk about the reference page, how to create a hanging indent, formatting the citations on the reference page with books, articles from an electronic journal, articles from electronic journal that have 3 to 20 authors, and also websites and online content. And then there'll also be additional information on APA format as well. So that is the presentation overview. You can see it's pretty lengthy, and that's why I have allotted time for questions. Okay, so first, what is APA? APA is a style created by the American Psychological Association. It is a set of rules for publications, which includes research papers, which you all will be doing, that outlines how to format format your content for consistency. So we're just not doing APA format just to do it. It is a certain style that we have that we would like to have keep consistent, that we all follow here at Monroe University. So the basics for the APA format for your paper should include 4 major sections. Page 1 being the title page, page 2 being the abstract page. Sometimes your professor may assign this portion, sometimes your professor will not. It is up to the professor's discretion. Also, too, we do have the main body, which is the full research paper essay of the section. So if your professor tells you how many pages the paper needs to be, that will consist of the main body. The title page and the abstract does not include that. Then you will have your final page, which will not necessarily be page 4. It depends on how many pages of the body it is. The last page will always be the references page, which lists all of your citations for the sources that you have used in your essay or your research paper format. So those are the 4 major sections. All right. Now, how do you generally format that APA paper? All right. One, it must be typed. APA paper must be typed. We are not handwriting any of our papers unless we're taking notes, of course. They all must also be double spaced. All right. Everything is double spaced. All right. All of it also must have 1-inch margins all around. And the standard is for it to be 12-point standard font with Times New Roman font. Okay. And then all should be left aligned as well. And I have just an example here of how it will look if you use a Microsoft Word, how it would look if you had to set up those basic general APA format. You have to, from the Home tab here, you're going to click on Times New Roman. And then from there, you have 12 font, the size. Also too, what I have here, yellow and highlighted here, this is the 1-inch margins. Okay. And you notice that where the ruler stops, that's where the 1-inch margin is. And it's all around. Okay. 1-inch margins. All right. So none of the words are running off. All right. And then you notice here too, the paragraph that we have here as an example, this is double spaced. All right. So this is just the basic of how your APA format should look. 1-inch margins, double space, Times New Roman 12 font, left align. Also too, left align, everything is left align. The only thing that is missing that is not left align is when you start the paragraph, it is an indent. And we have that indent right here, which is that space that comes right before the second line. How to make an indent properly? All you have to do is put the cursor in front of the first line of your paragraph and just press the tab, and then you have an automatic perfect indentation. Okay, we're not pressing the space bar multiple times to make it over to the right. All you have to do is press the tab button on your keyboard. Okay, so that's the general format of how your APA paper should look. All right, now let's start with our title page. So the title page is the cover page, which is, again, it's not included as the main body of your paper, but this is how generally it's supposed to look, which is the first page. One on the top right-hand corner, you have your page numbers, okay? Page numbers are there, top right-hand corner. Also, too, another rule of thumb, when you are doing your APA papers, and sometimes you may use a template or you try to do it on your own, make sure that this font as well is Times New Roman 12 as well, because sometimes it may take the default font that you may be using. So always make sure that this font as well is also Times New Roman 12. Then you have the title of your paper in the middle, and this is bolded. All right, the title of your paper. Then below it, you have, you have your name. Then you have Monroe University. Then you have the course number and the course name, your professor's name, and the due date of when the paper is due. So if you submit your paper a little early or a little late, you're not going to put that date. You're going to put the date of when the original paper was due. All right. Sometimes the cover page doesn't necessarily have to look in this order. It's best if you maintain this order. Also, too, you notice that it's not really necessarily double spaced here. Sometimes that's okay. All right. It is all also the discretion of your professor and how they want the paper to be completed. All right. But this is generally the format of how your title page should look. It needs to have all this information, not necessarily in the same order, but it needs to have all this information to make up the first page of your title page. All right. Next, we have the abstract page, which your professor may or may not assign. If your professor assigns this abstract page is page 2. And what the abstract page is a summary of your paper. And if you notice that I have your bolded and underlined and in caps, all right? Because the summary of your paper is a summary of all of the research that you have found and all of the information that you have found to make up your research paper or essay. It is not a culmination of the research that you have read previously, or it is not an abstract of another article that you have read. You create this abstract basically is a summarization of your research paper. Okay. And how you would do this abstract for page 2, you have the abstract in the middle and you have the bold and the title is just abstract. Notice that the abstract is not indented. All right. So we're going to have our abstract, which is not indented. It usually contains no more than 250 words. Also, too, we have at the bottom, which we have some keywords. Keywords are just collectively to describe the words that you have used in a research. So if you're talking about social media and mental health, if you want to say maybe you focused on Instagram and depression and young adults, then those will be your keywords. It's the keywords that sometimes are mostly, I'm not going to say sometimes, which are mostly repeated throughout your research paper, and it's about up to 5 words that you use in regards to your abstract page. Okay, so that was a lot just right now. I'm going to pause for questions. Does anybody have any questions? Questions? Going once?
Director Hope,
Yes.
good evening. This is Professor
Good evening.
Powell. Can you repeat for me what are the keywords and the definition and, so we can have a better understanding of keywords in the
For the
abstract?
abstract? Yes, so
Yes.
that the keywords in the abstract are the keywords that you use that are mostly repeated most of the time within your paper. So let's say if your topic is mainly like how I said, if you're looking up social media and mental health, but you focused on one of the platforms of social media is Instagram. And if you focus just on Instagram, you can say Instagram. If you focus just on with depression, you can put depression is the main keywords that have used to describe your research paper in total. And it's usually up to 5 words. You don't have to put a note really more than that. But those are the keywords that you will put in your abstract at the bottom of it. So it's just words that you use to describe your research.
Okay, thank you. Because I've had papers where the keywords includes and but, but, and so
Oh,
on and so forth. So,
that's a very that thank you for making that note. We're not including any articles, the a n. We're not using any of those. Yes, as Professor Irving says, we're not using and or not as our Boolean searches as well. We're using words that have described our research that we have come across. Thank you for that question, Professor
thanks.
Powell.
Thank you.
I was wondering if this if this is being recorded, like if we can access it after this workshop anywhere.
Yes, has like I said previously, it will be uploaded to the library's webpage. And are you in a certain class? Are you in either Professor Descasa's class or Professor Irving's class?
Um, I
Or you
am
just
in a
going on your own? Go
I'm
ahead.
in a yeah, I'm in a class. Her name is like Lynette or something.
Yes. Okay. So you're Professor Descasa's class. So yes, I will provide the once this presentation is over, it takes about a little bit of time to generate the PowerPoint and the recording, but yes, you'll be able to access this recording.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? No problem. Any other questions? Professor Irving, those can be found in the main points as well as the outline or the outline map. That is, yes, that is correct. If you're referring to if you create an outline um, before you do your research paper and those commonality words that you use, I'm assuming that's what you mean. Yes, you absolutely will use those keywords. Also, to the keywords that you should also use are when that now that Professor Irving mentioned Boolean searching, when you guys are searching for articles and research to do your your research paper, take those keywords, create a word bank to help you memorize the words that you potentially use to help you because you may not remember going forward the words that you may have used. So the keywords is Destiny, yes, the keywords are mandatory for the abstract component. Only if the abstract component is used for your paper if your professor requires it. Okay? All right, let's move along. So now we're going to get into what are in-text citations. Okay, what are in-text citations? In-text citations help the readers locate the cited source in the references section of the essay or research paper. And there are two different types of in-text citations. One can either be parenthetical or a narrative format. A parenthetical citation includes both the author's last name and the year of the publication separated by a comma in parentheses at the end of the sentence. All right. Then we have a narrative citation, which includes the author's name directly in a sentence with the year of publication directly following the author's last name. Okay, what does all of that mean? That sounds like it's a lot going on. So let's dive in a little bit deeper into how it may look. Okay, so information from, again, in-text citations. When you think of in-text citations, think of in the paper. All right, in-text citations go in the paper because we're going to say citations, which belong on our reference page, which we'll get into a little bit later. Okay, so again, in-text citations is information from research that you have taken from a source. A source can be an article, book, or website, etc. All right, that is placed in your essay or research paper, and it could be in the form of direct quoting. You can paraphrase or summarize, okay, these type of narrative or parenthetical citations, okay? Always when you cite a source in your paper, you must use parentheses in some form or fashion. And you always must include the author's last name and the date of publication. Okay, those are given in any type of in-text citation. No matter if it's parenthetical or narrative, you need to provide the author's last name and the date of publication. That is always going to stand out. Okay, now if you paraphrase or summarize a source, you usually just provide the author's last name and the date of publication. If you use a direct quote, meaning you take the quote directly, like you copy and paste directly from a source, you have to use the author's last name, date of publication, and the page number. Okay, now direct quoting, when I'm saying author's last name, date of publication, and the page number, obviously there may not always be an author, there may not always be a page number, okay, and there may not always even be a date of publication. So this is just the default, just to let you know the information that you may need for direct quoting. So I have an example here. If you paraphrase or summarize, and I'm going to say summarize and summary interchangeably, all right, you always put, as you see here, for example, it says Jones 2022, open parentheses, close parentheses, all right. If you do a direct quote, as an example, you have the author's last name, comma, the year of publication, comma, and then the page number of where that direct quote came from, okay. So this is the information for in-text citations. Delving a little bit deeper into in-text citations and how you write them. So let's first start with the direct quote, because this is usually the one that everybody usually runs to, which is totally okay. But just a side note, when you do a lot of direct quoting, if your professor tells you to upload your paper until safe assign, all right, your percentage is going to go up, all right? Not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, as long as you give credit to who said it, meaning the author's last name and the year, all right? That's, you'll know that you have cited correctly. You have to let the professor know that you have cited correctly, just as a precaution. But just so that you know, when you do direct quoting, meaning you copy and paste directly from a source, all right, your safe assign percentage is going to go up. Anyway, that was just a side note. All right, so there's different ways you can do direct quotes. As we can see here, we have a narrative and we have a parenthetical. Now you notice I have here says with a signal phrase and without a signal phrase. So let's take a look at the first one where it says with a signal phrase narrative. All right. Now we notice that we have here is Williams 2010 open and close parentheses states that a traumatic response entails a delayed, uncontrolled, repetitive appearance of hallucinations. We have open parentheses, P period, which for the page number, page 11, close parentheses, period. Okay, now we want to know, what is a signal phrase? I'm not sure what do you mean by a signal phrase. So what a signal phrase is a short phrase that usually introduces an in-text citation by letting the reader know, the reader meaning your professor, a source is about to be used. Is another way to also elevate your writing, to incorporate the in-text citation into your writing, meaning that you see how we see here, it says Williams 2010 states, okay? And also I just want to highlight, even though I have it bold, you don't bold it in your research paper. I'm just using it as a call out for this presentation. All right. So Williams 2010 states. Now, you notice how I said previously, when you use in-text citations, that you have to include the author's last name and the year, no matter what. Okay, so we already see that is here. Now that we're using direct quoting, because we're taking quotes directly from a source, we have the page number. All right, so that we have that component here with a signal phrase. So we have that is a narrative in-text citation. When you think of narrative, think of it as a sentence, okay? When you use a narrative in-text citation, think of it as a sentence, and you include a signal phrase with it. Now, how you do a parenthetical citation without a signal phrase, as an example here, a traumatic response entails a delayed, uncontrolled, repetitive appearance of hallucinations. Quotation, close quotation, open parentheses, Williams, comma, 2010, comma, P period, page 11, close parentheses, and then we have the period. So this is not necessarily a sentence, okay? As we have seen previously when we said Williams states. Okay, here we just have the direct quote, and then at the end we put the author's last name, the year, and the page number. Both of these are totally okay when you're doing this in your research paper. Main thing that you always must have is the author's last name and the year. Okay, now I had said previously that the default is to have the author's last name along with the year and the page number for direct quoting. Sometimes that is not always the case. Most times you may most sources that you may have may not have a page number. So if there is no page number, then use the paragraph. And what I mean by using the paragraph, you count what paragraph that quote is on. Okay, and instead of putting P period for page, you're gonna put PARA period and then the number. All right, there are much more intricate sources that don't have page numbers, especially like if you watch videos, if you're looking at pamphlets or such. Usually you could take the paragraph, but they're the APA style. They have a blog that mentions how to properly cite sources that don't have page numbers properly. Okay, and I have provided that link here as well. Okay. So how do we format in-text citations in an essay or research paper? Either we summarize, summary, or paraphrase. So again, narrative in-text citation with a signal phrase. Smith, open parentheses, close parentheses, 2002, explain that sleep suppresses appetite by blocking neurotransmitters of serotonin in the brain. All right, narrative citation includes the whole sentence. Okay. Now, if we have it where it is without the signal phrase and is a parenthetical citation, serotonin suppresses appetite by blocking neurotransmitters of serotonin in the brain. Open parentheses, Smith, comma, 2002, close parentheses, period. All right. This is not a direct quote, so there are no quotations. All right. This has either been summarized or it has been rewritten in your own words as a paraphrase. All right. You still got to give credit to who said it because it is not your idea. Another thing that I wanted to mention, because I didn't want to put too much on that last slide, notice that the period is outside when you use parenthetical citations. That means if you're putting the author's last name and the year at the end of the sentence, you're putting the period outside of the citation, which includes the author's last name and the year, not after the actual either summarization or paraphrase. All right, so you put the period outside of that. Okay, all right. So now there are examples of different type of signal phrases or verbs that you can use For narrative citations, you can say argues, believes, expresses, advises, written, illustrated. These are just some examples that you can do to include your narrative citations to help you. All right. And as I have some examples here, again, if you want to use according to Reynolds 2019, all right, you could say Reynolds 2019 argued that, all right. These are just ways to help you with narrative in text citations, whether you paraphrase, directly quote, um, or summarize your source. All right. This is just another way to include the author's last name and the year as a sentence in your paper. You can always still put it at the end of the quote in your paper. That is a parenthetical citation. All right. Also, you want to keep in mind when you're using these verbs, whether you're going to use the past or present tense of whatever you're saying. Usually it's mostly going to be the past tense because the articles already have been published. So you put ed at the end, but it depends on the type of source. I'm not sure if you're talking in a present term. It all depends on your writing in regards to that. All right, that was a lot. Questions? Any questions so far? And also, too, it doesn't just have to be from what I just said previously. If you have questions from what I said earlier in regards to sections, that's totally okay. I just want to carve out space and time for questions in case of you don't understand anything that I'm saying or anything sticks out. Any questions? Okay, I'm gonna keep moving. All right. Good. No question seems like it's good to me. All right. So how we format insect citation in the essay or research paper. All right. How do we have sources with two authors? Okay. So sometimes some sources are going to have multiple authors. All right. Of course, if it's just one author, you're just going to put, as we've seen previously, it was just one author and the year. All right. Now we have two authors. How do we do this when we are doing narrative in text citations or parentheticals in text citations? Okay. When citing a source with two authors, use the word "and" in between the author's name and the signal phrase in the text of the paper, but use an ampersand symbol between their names in parentheses. Okay, so we have the different ways that you can do the in-text citation. So let's take a look at the first one. All right, and I did direct quoting here. Just when I'm doing any summarizations, I just did direct quoting as an example. So we have, again, we have according. That's our signal verb that we're using to help us elevate our writing when we do our research paper. According to feminist researchers John and we have the words A-N-D spelled out, Tate, 2021, as we see in parentheses, it is no longer true to claim that women's responses to war have been ignored. We have that and quote, we have that quote in quotations. Then we have the page number because it's a direct quote. Now, the reason why we have "and" spelled out is because this is a narrative in-text citation, so we're using it as a sentence. It is a sentence. So that's why we have to put "and," A-N-D. Now, if we do this as a parenthetical in-text citation, we have the authors at the end of the quote. Some feminist researchers question that women's responses to war have been ignored. Open parentheses, John and the ampersand. This is the ampersand. Tate, comma 2021, comma page 2, close parentheses, period outside. Okay. So this is not a sentence. So that's why it's all right that we use an ampersand. Okay. All right. The first one, the narrative, is a sentence. So we're going to write out all the full words as a full sentence. Again, parenthetical, we have the author's last names, the year at the end of the in-text citation. Okay. So how do we format sources that have 3 to 20 authors? Okay. So we have sources that are 3 to 20 authors. We're not going to mention all three, or we're not going to mention all the way to 20 authors. All right, we're not mentioning all of them. So when citing a work that has 3 or more authors, okay, list the last name of the author plus et al. In every citation. So what et al. Means in Latin means and others. There's a phrase meaning and others, okay? So we're just going to mention the first author that is mentioned in the source. So however the authors are written on the source, you keep that order. You don't put those authors in order on the article or whatever you got the information from. The order, as in you see the authors, you put them. Okay, so for instance, this one here, we have an example that the authors were A. Harkle, B. Jones, and C. Smith. Okay, oops, excuse me, my apologies. All right, we have C. Smith. So all we're going to do is take the first author that was mentioned, which is Harkle, put et al. All right, so we have the first one, which is we have a narrative citation according to Harkle et al. 2020. All right, and then we have the rest of the in-text citation, the rest of the sentence. If we have it as a parenthetical at the end of the quote, you're just going to put Harkle et al., no comma, because we already have Harkle and others. Then we have the period, comma 2020, close parentheses. Okay, so make sure how many, if you automatically see authors that are more than 3, you already know that you're going to put et al. As the in-text citation in your paper. You're not mentioning all of the authors. Okay. All right. So next, as I said earlier, I have pulled pieces from Purdue OWL's presentation because I thought that were really important. Most of the times you may also come across works that don't have any author. Okay. So use the full source's title in a narrative in-text citation. Cite the first word, followed by the title of the year of the publication in a parenthetical sentence. So what I suggest you do here, you can just put according to here's how gardening benefits your health 2018. All right. To at the end, all right. At the end of the sentence, if you're not using end of the in-text citation, you would just put here's how gardening benefits your health. Okay, it is best to probably put the full citation, but you can consult with your professor in regards to how you want how do you want to cite this if there's no unknown author. The only reason why I say that is because if it doesn't have an unknown author and you're using the title of the source, it may increase the word count. So just consult with your professor to going forward and when in regards to when you do that. All right. So if you're using articles and chapters, you're going to put quotations around the title. If it's from books or reports, you're going to italicize the title. All right. Most of the time, you're just going to put them in quotations. All right. But if you are using any type of books or different type of reports or such, italicize. If you're unsure what type of source, again, you can always reach out to the library if you ever need an assistance, or you can reach out to your professor if you're unsure what type of source it is. Okay, so when citing a group author, all right, and this also can mean organizations as well. Mention an organization the first time you cite the source in either a narrative or parenthetical citation. So you first mention the group in a narrative citation, list the abbreviation before the year of the publication in parentheses, separated by a comma. So for example, as we can see here, we have the data collected by the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, 2019 confirmed. Okay, because we're including this again in our narrative citation, so we're including this as a sentence. So we want to make sure it's nice and neat and it's consistent when we're doing our sentence. If you're doing as a parenthetical reference at the end, you're going to put the full organization name, and then in brackets, you're going to put FDA or the abbreviation of the organization, comma, in the year 2019. Okay. And that's how you would do it going forward when you're citing from an organization or anything that has a group author. Okay. Any questions?
Yes. I know we're going over how to put in the APA citations, but if they use a database, would it not give them this information without them having to, I don't know, ponder over how to do it?
Yes, exactly. Yes. But we want to encourage them to understand what they're copying and pasting from the database,
Okay.
because they may just be copying and pasting a citation and not understanding what parts that they're copying. They're just
Okay.
copying the in-text citation. So yes, that is perfect. Yes, Professor Irvin, we encourage everyone to use the library databases because these citations are already done for them. But sometimes students use the World Wide Web, and we know the World Wide Web does not create citations for them. So we encourage them to know exactly what they're writing or what they're citing, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
No problem.
No, no, I just,
Any other? No, go ahead.
no, I was just saying because, because sometimes that could be very like daunting and confusing to students. And then
Yeah.
sometimes when they use Google, if they use Google Scholar, it will actually give them the citations as well instead of them searching the webpage. But
Yep.
thank you.
And I tell the students as well to always use the library databases because the citation does it for them. It does it for them. All they do have to do is create a proper in-text citation. But it's we want them to also understand how to properly cite and what they're actually doing and understanding what they're doing. But yes, I do encourage them to use the library databases. Or if there's some professors that tell them they can have an internet source or web source, they may not necessarily know how to cite that. Then they can use a citation generator as well to build the citation out going forward for in-text citations. Yep, absolutely. You're preaching to the choir. um, any other questions? All right, so let's keep going. Again, I know this information is a lot to digest, so please feel free, to reach out to the library, to your professor if you need any additional assistance. Okay, so what I have here, hold on one second here. Oh, I don't know what happened there. All right, so my apologies. All right, so another thing, and I'm only just going to briefly touch upon this. In your research paper, all right, there are different ways to section off your paper, and that is by using the 5-level heading system. All right. So if you did an outline before you did your research paper, the level heading system will be perfect for you to do your research paper. Okay. It is not necessarily needed. All right. Again, always consult with your professor. But the level heading system is a great way to section off your paper to let the reader know who your professor is, the next pieces that are coming in your research paper. So we have a level heading 1 as an example. We have different methods, and we notice that level heading 1 is in the middle and it's bolded. Think of also too, a level heading 1 is when you do your when you start your paper on page, depending on if you don't have an abstract and your paper starts on page 2, before you even start to type your paper, you're going to put the title of your research paper. And you will make that is a level heading 1. That is just letting the reader know who usually is your professor, what your paper is about. Okay, so that's level heading 1. Then you have a level heading 2. Okay, so the level heading 2 is an extension of level heading 1. So we have methods here. Then we have a level heading 2, which is left align, still bolded. Okay, and we have that. So we have methods, and then a level heading 2 are the measures of the methods. Okay, then we have that too. And then also too, just to mention that you'll have bodies and paragraphs in between these headings, these are just different sections of your research paper if you do decide to use it, okay? Then we have from a level heading 2, we have a level heading 3, all right? Now, I also want you to keep in mind that you cannot have a level heading 2 without a level heading 1. You cannot have a level heading 3 without a level heading 1. There's always have to be a level heading 1, okay? So we have a level heading 2, which is measures. Now, the measures of this are different types of exercise, which is a level heading 3, all right? So we have exercise, measures, methods. Now, from there, we can have a level heading 4. So you may not even ever go this far down in your paper, but you may going forward. It depends on how you want to align your paper. So when we have exercise, we have a level heading 4, which is group exercise. So we have exercise as level heading 3, then an extension of that is group exercise. Then you can go even further with the level heading 5, different types of group exercises. We have yoga class, spin class, level heading 5. Then you can also have another level heading 4, level heading 3, level heading 2 to go further and deeper and deeper. If you, like I said, if you have done an outline, it helps you to best organize this going further. But this is things that you may want to think about going further when you're doing it. So you don't have to necessarily have to do it. Your whole paper can consist of just level heading 1s, no more than level heading 2s. But this is just ways for you to section out your paper. And if you want more explanation in regards to your level headings, like I said, I'm just going to briefly, I can go deeper into this. Excuse me, I'm sorry. My screen is very sensitive. I don't want to gloss over this too much, but I just wanted to also mention in regards to level headings. Again, you can go to the Purdue Hour PowerPoint to have more explanation in regards to level headings. Okay. All right, so now we're going to go into the final pieces of our research paper, which is the reference page, which is the last page of your paper. And it's always going to be the last page depending on how many pages the body of your paper is, and depending also too if you're doing an abstract. All right, so also too, we have our references page. We have references in the middle bolded. Okay, on the top right hand corner, we have our title page. We have each of our citations here. So we have one citation, and how you know that we have different citations if we have that hanging indent. So we have one citation, two citations, three citations, four citations. So each citation that we have here, we have 4 sources that we have used to make up our research paper. All right. And if you notice too, how I said here, we have this hanging indent. The hanging indent is every line of citations. Every line after the first is indented to the right. All right. And that is called a hanging indent. All right. Each citation that you have must have a hanging indent. Okay. Also, too, your citations must be in order by the first character in alphabetical order. So we see here by the first letter. Okay. Also, too, we notice that our citations are double spaced. You notice that there are not triple space between each citation. There are double space between all citations. And another thing here is that's another thing that to mention, since we have 4 citations, 4 sources that we have used to write our paper, we must have at least minimum 4 in-text citations, 4 either parenthetical or narrative citations that are either summarized, directly quoted, or paraphrased. Okay, so every source that you have mentioned on your reference page must have a quote, paraphrase, or summary in the paper. Okay, there must be some correlation. So there should be Cummings, and then just to notice here for our first citation here, we have Cummings, Butler, and Kraut. So we're always automatically going to put et al. So it should be Cummings et al. 2002. Okay, but we have all of the authors mentioned on the reference page, just so your professor knows, or whoever the reader is that they can come to this article and know that this is where you got that information. Okay, so this is just something that I want you to keep in mind when you're doing your references. All right, how do you create and hang an indent? All right, I'm gonna get to your question. There'll be a section for questions, okay? All right, when you do a creating and hanging indent, all right, you must you can do this section on Word, all right? Hanging indent appears after the second line of the citation. So again, how I mentioned previously, this is the hanging indent, and let me just go back quickly. This is the hanging indent. Every line after the first line of the citation must have this space here. That is called a hanging indent. But how do you create that? All right. If you use the APA, excuse me, if you use the APA template, and I'll provide that link at the end of this presentation, the hanging indents are already completed for you. All you have to do is copy and paste it onto the template. But sometimes they may, the format may, mess up or be a little wonky. That is all right. You still have to, show you how to still create those. All right. So from a hanging indent, you're gonna you're gonna go to the paragraph settings on the Word ribbon, Microsoft Word ribbon, and then under the indentation section, you're gonna make sure this is gonna say 0.75, 0.01. Leave that alone. But under special, you're gonna make sure it says hanging. That is the main thing that you want to do. So you highlight your citation, and then you come to this part of the Microsoft Word, and then you select under special, you're going to click hanging. All right, so that's how you create a hanging indent, just in case if your alignment is a little off, which is okay. All right, so how you format citations on a reference page of the essay or research paper, how you do that for books. So books, you can still use books as a source. Do not rule out using books as a source. How you would do that is you put the author's last name, first initial, then you have the year of publication, title of the work, as we notice that is italicized, and then we have the publisher's name. So for example, we have Stoneman, comma, R period, open parentheses, 2008, close parentheses, period. Then we have the title of the work, and then we also have the publisher. So that is how you would format your books. All right. If you are using an article from an electronic journal, all right, you will have the first, the last name, first initial year, title of the article, title of the periodical, volume, number, issue, pages, and then if there is a link, usually a DOI, which is like the social security number of an electronic journal. You don't necessarily have to memorize, but you can always refer back to it. If it is there, fine. If it is not, it's totally okay. And again, we have the citation here, and I'm just going to run quickly because we're running to time and I want to answer some questions just in case. So we have the article, it is an article, but we have the citation, and this belongs on the reference page. We have the author's last names, first initial, the year, the title of the published work, where it was published was in the Purdue Journal of Service Learning and International Engagement. And you notice that you know that you have the right citation and you have formatted it correctly when you have the publication is italicized along with the number, the volume number of the article. And then we also have the pages. And you notice how I always also have that hanging indent as well. Okay. Which, as Professor Irving was saying earlier, when you do these citations, as we're doing from our reference page, if you use the library databases, these citations are already done for you. All you have to do is copy and paste it. And the main thing is to make sure you copy and paste it correctly. But just to understand what the pieces of the sources that you're doing and what are you actually copying and pasting, that's what I'm explaining to you. So you know exactly what you are copying and pasting. Okay? So you know that you also have the right information of the source, because you have to have all of this information to make a proper in-text citation, also along with a proper citation on your reference page. Okay, also too, now I just want to highlight this one, similarly to how you would do it with one or two authors. Only thing that you're going to do is you're going to mention all of the authors that you have, but when it comes to the last author, you're going to put an ampersand. So no matter how many authors there are before that last one, you're going to put the ampersand, which means and. Okay, so that's the only difference between a source that has 2 or 1 author, all right, you're gonna, because the 2 or 1, you're just gonna mention all the authors. But depending on how many authors are from a source that has 3 to 20 authors, that last author that you're gonna mention for your reference page, you're gonna put an ampersand. All right, and again, I have it bolded. It's not something you bold on your reference page. This is just a call out so you can understand what I'm trying to explain. Okay. So these are where you may need a little bit more understanding if you use websites or online content. Websites or online content are not going to have citations already done for you. You have to create these citations. Again, you can use a citation generator. The library encourages you to use the citation generator Cite Fast, and I have that at the end of the presentation for you. You can also use NightCite. You can also use Citation Machine. There's Scribber. There's so many ones out there. Just make sure that the information is correct, because even though you're uploading all of the information from that citation generator, make sure all the information is correct. So also to include as much information as possible. Some information may be omitted or you may not find it, but try to include as much information as possible, because the article or the web content may be there one day and it may not be there the next. Okay, so you want to include that as much information as possible. So if you're doing a website, if there's an author, great. So you put the author's last name, first initial, full date, especially for web content. Articles, you're only going to put the year because that's when the year was published. We need the full date for websites, along with the title of the web page and then the URL. All right. For group organizations, you're going to pretty much do the same thing. You're just set of the author's name. You're just going to put the title of the group or organization in the place of the author. Okay. So the same information, just if there's no author and there's a group or organization, you will put that in its place. Okay. Also too, if there's no author, okay, so if there's no author, you take the information of the title of the web page. Okay. All right, when you think of web page, if we're looking at information at the CDC, all right, the Center for Disease Control, yes, that is the overall website. But we're looking up information about obesity, that is the web page. All right, if we're looking at Monroe University, monroeuniversity.edu is the website. But we're looking up information about financial aid. Financial aid is the web page. So you need the title of the web page. You're not just going to put monroeuniversity.edu on the reference page. So if there's no author, you're going to put the title of the web page in this place. So for instance, this one was Tuscan white bean pasta. All right, and then you put the year, the full date. It was taken from Budget Bites, and then you have this is just a one that I made up. Then you have where you retrieved it from, what date you retrieved it from, and then you have the URL. Okay, so this is how you would do websites for online content. Okay. So we have reached the end of this APA presentation. And again, this will be recorded, and I'm sorry that I zoomed through it. I just wanted to keep with time to make sure you all had enough time and to answer questions. There is a library guide on the library's web page, which is monroeuniversity.libguides.com/APA. Please take a look at that. Always refer to, when in doubt, go to apastyle.apa.org. Again, if you need to get to this PowerPoint presentation that I have taken adaptations from for the Purdue OWL formatting style guide, please take a look at this website, because again, it goes into much more depth. All right. And again, the citation generator that we all use is Cite Fast. Okay. So we got about 4 minutes left for questions, and I know somebody held their question. I'm going to stop the recording, and then we can just